As we go through the week 1 quarterback rankings, you may notice that there are plenty of changes from my top 20 quarterback rankings that I did for the overall 2024 season just before the season started. So starting out with tier 1 right here, Josh Allen is at number 1. Against the Arizona Cardinals, I do think this is going to be set in stone this week for me. He's the number 1 quarterback for me on the season. I think it starts in week 1. This is a really easy matchup. The Arizona Cardinals are really not that much of an improved defense by everything I can see, just based on what their offseason moves were. They really went primarily offense during the offseason. So Josh Allen obviously is going to be a quarterback to take advantage of. Even though he doesn't have Stephon Diggs, he's still the second best quarterback in the league. Let's just get that straight. Number 2, he obviously provides the rushing upside that many guys just do not. So Josh Allen here at number 1 feels pretty simple to me. Now number 2 and 3, Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes in the same matchup on Thursday night. So with Lamar Jackson, obviously the reason I prefer him is because rushing upside is always a factor. But the other reality is that I went through this on the tight end ranking video earlier today. I think there's going to be a revenge game narrative for the Baltimore Ravens, and I think they will win this game. But I really do see Lamar Jackson having a good game this week because he is going to be in a position where he's angry, and he's had his team circled on schedule all offseason long, so I think this weekend he capitalizes on it tomorrow. And then with Patrick Mahomes, obviously, I think he's a great play this week as well. The Ravens defense is great, but so is Patrick Mahomes. He's greater than the Ravens defense is. And ultimately, I really do believe that this year, Mahomes will start to look more like 2021 Mahomes, 2020 Mahomes. And obviously, he's always been great, but fantasy production-wise, he's dipped a little bit without Tyreek Hill. Now, the difference this year is that they have a legitimate deep threat with Xavier Worthy now in that roster. So he is going to open up the entirety of the offense here. So I think that opens up more passing touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes and more passing yards off of the whole situation right there. Now, dropping down to our next tier right here, Jaylen Herz is at number 4, taking on the Packers in this Brazil game. Look, I wanted to put Hertz in this number 1 tier. He rightfully belongs there most of the time. I ultimately just think this Brazil game is going to be a negative impact on both teams. Like I saw AJ Brown talking about it earlier this week. He said he probably won't leave his hotel room because he can't even bring his phone outside the hotel. Vibes are just off here. Like I think both teams are going to look a little bit off. So obviously Hurts provides the rushing upside, and I don't consider the Packers defense an especially strong one. Need to see it with them first. But with Jaylen Hurts here, I do ultimately have bumped down just a little bit because I do think this Packers game in Brazil is going to have teams out of sorts this week. Now I've got Tua at number 5 here. Tua against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I've said it throughout the week. I think it has potential to be the highest scoring game, but I think it has the most potential to be the highest scoring game. And Tua has had a history with Mike McDaniel of being really good in fantasy within the first 6 weeks. I think we're going to see a lot of fantasy production front-loaded for Tua Tagovailoa in the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season, because usually by the back half, that's when he kind of evens himself out as a middle-tier quarterback. But with Tua Tagovailoa this week against a weaker defense, I'm going with Tua at number 5. Not only that, I'm taking the higher on his line on Underdog today, 266.5 passing yards. You know, in both seasons with Mike McDaniel as head coach, he's crossed those numbers with flying colors, basically. Last year, he crushed it. The first year with Mike McDaniel, he still crossed it by a couple yards. So this one I'm feeling pretty good about. And if you're feeling good about this one too, join Underdog today using that link in the comments below. And when you use code FFN to sign up for Underdog, not only will they give you a 50% deposit match up to $1,000 in bonus cash, but you also get to take advantage of the free Travis Kelce line this week, getting more than half a total yards. So obviously that's a great line to take advantage of, and you need to do it before tomorrow, so do it today using code FFN. Now at number 6, I've got Kyler Murray here taking on the Buffalo Bills this week, and ultimately I think Kyler has a great week too. I think this matchup has a lot of potential to be a high scoring one as well. I really do, because I don't love the Buffalo Bills defense in week 1 against the Cardinals, which I think are a good offense. People have just kind of forgotten about them. Without Kyler Murray last year to start the season, they looked atrocious offensively. Well, yeah, Kyler Murray's a good quarterback. When he came back, they were a much different offense. They looked so much better. They let Trey McBride run. James Conner has a good year last year. They've got Marvin Harrison Jr. now. So I like Kyler this week a lot. He's here at number 6 pretty comfortably. Now dropping down to our next tier right here, I've got Jordan Love at number 7. And again, this matchup in Brazil, I think it just throws teams off. Now, I think the Packers are a really good offense. I really like Jordan Love's situation with the weapons he has and the offensive line he has and the coach that he has. But I ultimately, like I said, I just can't get past this Brazil matchup. And Philadelphia's defense is good too. They're going to be an improved defense from last year. They had the personnel. They had Matt Patricia calling plays last year. He's gone, and Vic Fangio is now calling the defense. So they're going to be an improved defense this year. And I do think that it starts to show in week 1. Could give Jordan Love some trouble in addition to that Brazil matchup. And then with CJ Stroud at number 8 here against the Indianapolis Colts in Indy, obviously the divisional matchup gives me pause. With the divisional matchup, it's always shaky with any particular player in fantasy football, but especially at the quarterback position. Because the reality here with the quarterback position is that these teams, they know your game better than any other team outside of your division. So the Colts saw him last year. They saw him do really well against them. You don't think they were studying that all offseason in preparation for week 1? I think Stroud's a great player. He's going to be ranked higher in different weeks other than this. But I do think against the Indianapolis Colts in Indy this week could pose a little bit of a problem for CJ Stroud just based on efficiency numbers and maybe not as many touchdowns thrown. Now, number 9 here, Jared Goff versus the Rams. Tons of potential to score. I want in on basically every option on both sides of the ball here except Matt Stafford. Not going to cover him today. I like Jared Goff a lot, though. Jared Goff is basically a lock most weeks to get you 20 to 25 points in a 4-point passing touchdown league. Jared Goff just has all the weapons he needs. He's got the best offensive line in football, a great offensive coordinator, and against this Rams defense without Raheem Morris as a defensive coordinator, I like the advantage here for Jared Goff in week 1 because he did great last year in week 1. I think it's definitely going to be a similar situation this year. Now, I've got Caleb Williams at number 10 here, one spot over Anthony Richardson. So with Caleb Williams taking on the Titans, I do ultimately think, and I want to say this right away, with the Tennessee Titans, I think they will have a better defense this year. I think they will look better overall this year. I think their defense is probably a work in progress, though. They obviously got L'Jarius Sneed over there now, so that's going to be a good sign for their defense. They've got some pass rushing talent. Their defensive front seven's good. I think it's going to take time to gel a little bit. But obviously with Caleb Williams, the big question is how can the rookie do week 1? I think just based on the Tennessee Titans rebuilding the defense and what we saw from Caleb during the preseason, it looks like he's got all his pieces that he needs, and he looks incredible already. So I'm ready to commit to Caleb Williams week 1. If I had him, I'd be playing him over Anthony Richardson. I think Anthony Richardson obviously has a ridiculously high ceiling. It's actually a little bit different than the CJ Stroud situation because Anthony Richardson didn't play much last year. He only played a couple games. So the Texans really don't know much about his game. Now, we know that he's a great rusher. We know he has a great arm. But what we saw in the preseason, tons of inaccuracy. So just based on very limited game experience, I'm not betting on him in week 1 versus the Houston Texans, a strong defense and a divisional opponent. So I think there's better weeks again where we could play Anthony Richardson in the future. And I'm not saying to bench Anthony Richardson, but I am definitely not high on him in week 1 on limited work against the divisional opponent as strong as the Houston Texans. Now to round out this tier, Dak Prescott at the Cleveland Browns this week at 12 is going to be a good play. Dak's always a good play in fantasy football, aside from when he throws a bunch of interceptions, which could happen this week against the Browns. Browns have a good secondary. So even though he's got CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson, I think there's potential. It's a turnover type of week. Dak's got a lot of pressure on him this season. He's trying to get a new contract here, and I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm just saying there's tangible pressure here. He's older now, not quite as mobile as he once was. So I just wonder if Dak Prescott starts to show a little bit of a ceiling drop in fantasy football terms. Because obviously he's going to be good with CeeDee Lamb and Jake Ferguson there, but the running backs aren't as strong, so it's all kind of on Dak Prescott this year. I think we might see a little bit of a ceiling drop this year for Dak Prescott, and I think it starts this week. Now, dropping down to our last tier right here. I've got Trevor Lawrence at 13 in this Miami Dolphins matchup because, again, I think this has so much upside to score a lot of points in fantasy. The ultimate reason Lawrence isn't higher, he's going to be reliant on Brian Thomas Jr., rookie, and Gabe Davis, who's always been inconsistent. Always there's going to be Evan Ingram there to be a steady target guy, but touchdown upside, what does it look like this week for Trevor Lawrence? I think it's a Travis Etienne game for sure. Went through that in the running back rankings video yesterday. But Trevor Lawrence, I ultimately just do not trust him based on last year, and I don't trust his weapons quite yet this year. I want to see them develop a little bit more first. Now, Joe Burrow's at 14. Might feel a little bit low against the New England Patriots. There's really two main reasons for this. Number one, historically, Joe Burrow has had a slow start to basically every year of his career. And there's always been a really good reason for it. Rookie year, obviously a rookie. Second year, coming off a torn ACL. Third year coming off an appendix removal. Fourth year last year, had the like ankle / calf potential Achilles injury. And then this year, obviously coming off the bad elbow. Like literally every offseason for Burrow has been like just atrocious. So Joe Burrow, I don't trust him in week 1. And I don't think the Patriots defense is bad. I think their team is bad, specifically their offense. I think their defense is decent. So I think that just being in this situation here, even though it's at home against one of the worst, if not the worst teams in the NFL, I think Burrow struggles, much to people's surprise this week. And then to round it all out, Kirk Cousins ended up at 15 here. And I gotta say, like, I've been lower on Kirk Cousins. I've got a lot of people giving me flack for it in the comment section. I understand it. And I ultimately like him this week better than a lot of other options because he's playing the Steelers with good weapons. Like, the Steelers defense is reliant on really a couple stars. TJ Watt in his 30s, Cam Hayward in his 30s, and Minka Fitzpatrick getting close to 30. So when does the drop-off hit? Could be as soon as this year. And with Kirk Cousins, we obviously know him to be a very efficient quarterback. So I don't think that changes all of a sudden. I think what changes here is maybe we see a little bit of rust just coming off that injury, and maybe just a little bit of an issue meshing with the targets that are there. But I ultimately think that Kirk Cousins is a solid play this week. Now, what I like to do at the end of every single rankings video is give you my favorite underdog quarterback of the week. And this is specifically for people who are drafting in weekly best ball drafts that are going on in every particular week of fantasy. So the Sunday main slate games and the primetime games as well. You can do weekly drafts on best ball, and you want to go for some lower draft capital guys that have lots of upside to boom that week. And for this week at the quarterback position, I think it could be Will Levis. Will Levis, the Tennessee Titans quarterback, had a bad start to the year last year. Obviously, he comes into Tennessee. They had already the most atrocious offense, one of them at least, with very minimal weapons and a horrible offensive line. A lot has changed in his favor this year. New offensive coach, offense first head coach when they fired Mike Vrabel, who I liked as a coach, but they went offense first. Offensive line should be improved based on their investments this offseason. Weapons should be improved based on their investments this offseason. A full offseason under his belt with all of those positive additions and subtractions to this team, I do think there's a clear mandate. We're trying to make Will Levis work, and the Bears defense is good, but I think there's a chance that Will Levis just comes out and surprises people this week. So let me know how your team is looking so far this week, and if you want to see the top 15 tight end rankings for week 1, click on this video right here.